With the Galaxy Fold 4, Samsung launched its 4th generation foldable phone, and it really is just a case of refinement. So I was interested to see how it compared with the previous model, the Fold 3. Do the refinements make it a much better device, and should you buy that one over the older one, considering that one might actually be cheaper now? I'm Cam Bunton from Pocket-lint, and in this video I'm going to explain the differences and hopefully help you to decide which to go for. If you do like it, please do hit a thumbs up, subscribe and tap the notification bell to make sure you don't miss any more. So what's interesting about the design is that not a huge amount has changed between the Fold 3 and the Fold 4, and yet this is also simultaneously the area that has had arguably the biggest impact on the experience of using the phone. Speaking broad strokes, they both have largely the same design. From the front you can see clearly that the Z Fold 4 is shorter than the Z Fold 3. It's also wider but has a slimmer hinge and slimmer bezels, giving much more surface area up to the display, which in turn means that's a much nicer screen to use than the cover display on the Z Fold 3. It's less cramped and narrow, making it more convenient for replying to messages and doing the odd bit of social media scrolling and browsing. It just doesn't feel quite as awkward anymore. It's a similar change internally. The slightly skinnier bezels and wider screen mean more surface area, making it a little better for multitasking or side-by-side split-screen views or flex mode video watching. As for in-hand feel and general build and appearance, we're in something of a conundrum here. The more defined lines and straighter edges certainly, to my mind, make the Z Fold 4 look that bit cleaner and more attractive. But the more accentuated curves on the Z Fold 3, especially combined with the matte black aluminium, make it much nicer to hold in the hand. From a durability standpoint, they're largely the same. Both have IPX8 water resistance, and both use the Armor aluminium metal around the edges. So what else is there? Not a lot. They both have that visible gap in the display when the phone is shut, so dust and fluff can get into the surface of the display when it's stowed in your pocket. And there's also still a visible crease on the screen, which doesn't seem any more or less visible than the previous version. It doesn't get in the way and is easy to ignore, as is the under-display camera hidden near the top. Now the hinge does feel stiffer than the older model though, which means that when you're holding it open and swiping across the middle portion of the display where the hinge is, or pressing it, it needs that bit more force to make it feel like the phone is closing. So that can be great for gaming, where sometimes the tendency is to press that middle part of the screen while you're furiously gaming and then accidentally shut the phone, or part shut the phone. Now moving on to the displays, and as we've already mentioned, the biggest difference to using these two phone screens doesn't have anything to do with their tech specs like resolution, color, brightness and refresh rates. It's all about the size. So when it comes to the quality of those displays, there's really not much difference at all. They're Samsung AMOLED-based panels, which means they're tuned to be vibrant with punchy colors and great contrast, but without making video appear too oversaturated. With some other phones, we often see too much red or warmth, making pinks, reds, and similar colors too boosted. But not here. The only real difference we could see putting these two main screens side by side is that the whites seem to be a little cleaner on the new model. The Z Fold 3 has a slightly golden hue to those white pages and accents, where the Z Fold 4 doesn't. This was with both set to their default neutral color balance in the settings. Regardless, that's not something that'll ever affect anything you're watching. Both even feature the same refresh rates, peak brightness, and HDR support, so to be 100% honest, the display qualities, apart from the size, are not a reason to choose one phone over the other. It is worth mentioning the new software on the Fold 4 though, because this makes things like multitasking a little bit easier, specifically the taskbar on the bottom. It allows you to drag and drop apps from the taskbar up into the display to launch split screen, for instance. But with a software update in the future, this is going to come to the Fold 3 as well. As mentioned though, that slightly wider screen just makes the feature more useful. Okay, so performance, and here's another area you might see some subtle differences between these two phones. The latest Fold has a Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, the older model has the Snapdragon 888. Without wanting to make a big deal out of something, it's worth noting that, again, for most things like loading apps, playing games, getting on with tasks, you're really not going to notice much difference between the two phones. However, I did notice some improvements in areas that maybe don't matter quite as much. Just little things like on the Fold 3, we'd sometimes see our home screen clock widgets and apps loading slightly slower when we first unlock the phone after powering it on. Or we'd see little stutters when we're going from a static page to swipe out to the home screen, or swiping down quick settings and notifications. Scrolling through Twitter, oddly enough, is another example. Seems smoother on the Fold 4. They're not big differences, but it did take away some of the minor irritations we've had with, quite frankly, most of Samsung's phones from the past 12 months. So that's a plus. What's to say about battery life? Not a lot. The 4400 mAh battery is the same on both, and how much mileage you get from them is mostly affected by how often you use the big internal display for power-intensive functions like gaming or camera shooting. The big screen is quite thirsty, and we definitely noticed a difference in how far a full battery went on days where we used that for media consumption and browsing versus busy days where we had a lot on and spent most of our time replying on the cover display. Neither phone would get us through 2 full days, that's for sure, and if you're a heavy user you might even see the dreaded red zone towards the evening. Most days I'd personally have around 30% left after about 2 or 3 hours of screen time usage through the day, and that's mixed between the cover and the main displays, but primarily using the larger internal screen. On days with lots of camera usage and Mario Karts, that could even dip below 20%. When it comes to charging though, both have the same 25-watt wired charging speeds and both have wireless charging. And with a compatible charger, the wireless charging is slightly faster on the Fold 4. Switching to speak about cameras now, and at the risk of sounding like I'm repeating myself, again, there's not a huge difference here. If there's one thing that makes the biggest difference in the camera department, it's the addition of a better third zoom camera. But when it comes down to the main and ultra-wide, despite featuring different resolutions and sensors, the results are very similar. Of course, that's no surprise since a lot of that comes down to Samsung's scene optimizer and image processing. Colors are vibrant, contrast is high, but the end result of that image just looks great. Maybe not for the purist who wants all natural colors and for the photo to look like what they see with their eyes, but for social and for visual impact, Samsung's got it. Now, the zoom lens on the Fold 4, that goes up to the equivalent of 3 times optical zoom. That's versus 2 times on the Fold 3, so you get that bit closer to the action without losing any detail. However, thanks to the added zoom ability, the additional hybrid or digital zoom effects go further too. So where Fold 3 tops out at 10 times, the Fold 4 goes all the way to 30. It is worth noting though that once you get to those extremes, things do get pretty ropey, but just comparing the 10 times zoom from the Fold 4 and the Fold 3, you can see the difference in contrast, color and, albeit artificial, the sharpness. For those who want to shoot something vaguely passable from long distances, it's a better camera system to have. Otherwise, low light and night mode does seem a little better on the Fold 4 as well. It seems to draw in more light indoors without bright light sources, resulting in a bit less noise in the shadows, at least with the main camera. The ultra-wide doesn't seem as strong here and often struggles with noise and light levels. In the end, there are maybe 3 or 4 things that stood out to me when comparing these two phones in terms of things that made a difference to my everyday use. The new shape and design making the cover display easier to use, the sturdier hinge being harder to accidentally push inwards, the more stutter-free interface experience, and the better zoom cameras. And it's safe to say a couple of those are very minor things. On the whole, the two offer very similar experiences, and given the expense of owning one, you might be better off seeing if the Fold 3 is now available at a discount, or because it's Samsung, waiting a few months from launch and seeing what kind of price drop we might see on the newer model. The Fold 4 is a fantastic phone and a refined experience over the Fold 3, but it is still very expensive. So buy it if you want the best of the best and don't mind spending the money. But you'd not be compromising too much by getting the 3, especially since it'll likely be a good chunk cheaper. Let me know what you think of these two phones in the comments down below, or you can get me on Twitter. I'm at Cam Bunton. If you did like this video, it'd mean a great deal if you hit a thumbs up, subscribe and tap the notification bell to make sure you don't miss any more of our uploads. And I'll see you again in the next one. Bye for now.